Happy Friday, everyone. I am back with my third read aloud story for you to practice speech and language skills today. Today we're going to practice our R sound. Now, before we get started with the book, I wanted to do a little bit of pre-teaching to my students as well as to their parents to talk about the different kinds of R's that we make and the different methods that we might use to make that sound. So there are two different kinds of sounds, and you've probably seen in your student's IEP that I may have referred to a prevocalic versus a vocalic R. A prevocalic R is an R before a vowel. Prevocalic, pre-vowel. Like the word robot, the R comes before the O in robot. A vocalic R comes after a vowel, like the word car. Now, some of the medial in the middle of the word R's are prevocalic and some are vocalic. So if you have the word parachute, you can hear that there's a after the R in the middle of the word para, so that is a prevocalic R. The word like the word hard, the R is in the middle of the word, but there's no vowel after the R, so that is a vocalic R. Typically, students tend to progress faster with one or the other because we do actually consider them different sounds from a speech perspective. So when you're thinking about practicing these sounds with your students, think about how are they doing with their prevocalic R, how are they doing with their vocalic R, is there a difference there? If they've got one but not the other, maybe focus a little bit more on the one that they're struggling with. I would also like to talk a little bit about how you make an R. So there are two methods to making an R. One is called bunching, which is basically when we just bunch our tongue up in the back of our mouth like a sock. So we kind of go. You can see that my tongue is back and just bunched up like a ball. Sometimes I'll prompt students to kind of bite on the sides of their tongue in the back of their mouth, just obviously not hard, but just a little bit to get them thinking about how they're bringing the sides of their tongue up against their teeth. The other method for making an R, which is a far easier method to teach, so a lot of your students a lot of your children at home have probably been working on this method, is called retroflex. And we're bringing the tip of our tongue up and back. About half of the population bunches and about the other half of the population does retroflex. But because retroflex is easier to teach and easier for students to figure out what's going on in speech therapy, we often rely on retroflex unless a student is just more inclined to be able to have success with bunching. To get a successful retroflex R, I typically go from an L back to an R. So we could go from the word la back to the word ra. We go la. Okay, now bring the tip of your tongue up and back a little bit. Ra. Now bring the tip of your tongue up and back a little bit more. Ra. So it goes from a la to a ra. You could use this for real words. Light, right, right, as well. Okay, so now let's get started and read a book and practice those R sounds while we read. This book is called The Magic School Bus on the Ocean Floor. It was the end of the day and it was hot in school. We had been working for hours on our ocean science projects. All our work made Miss Frizzle very happy, but it made us very tired and hot. So let's find a retroflex, a prevocalic R and a vocalic R on that page. The word working, that is a vocalic R. There's no vowel after the R, so we go working. Remember to bring that tongue up and back if you are doing retroflex. Miss Frizzle, that is an R blend. R blend means the R is next to another consonant sound. In this word, the R is next to an F. So this is a prevocalic R because the R precedes a vowel. So we could say frizzle. We were putting the finishing touches on a display about how ocean animals swim when someone said, "I wish we could go swimming." I see a vocalic R here in the word whir. Sometimes I'll prompt students to add a little bit of a sound after the R if they're having more success with prevocalic R's than with vocalic R's. So whir, that little obviously we would phase that out eventually, but that little may help your student, help your child figure out where their tongue needs to go and how to bring that tongue up and back and really kind of push off, because your tongue needs to be a little flexed to make the R sound. In speech, there are lax sounds and there are tense sounds. R is more of a tense sound. Miss Frizzle looked up. Without warning, she said, "As a matter of fact, children, I've been planning a class trip to the ocean for tomorrow." Everybody cheered. Sometimes having a weird teacher isn't so bad. Weird. There's a vocalic R for you. The next day, everyone showed up in a bathing suit. We boarded the old school bus and Miss Frizzle started the engine. We were ready for a day of fun in the sun. Ready. We could go from letty, a made-up word, back to ready. Letty, ready, ready. When we finally came to the beach, we wanted to jump off the bus, but guess what? Miss Frizzle didn't stop. She kept right on going, past the lifeguard station, across the sand, and down to the water's edge. Water. Bring that tongue up and back, or bunch, bunch. Water. We are now in the intertidal zone, said Miss Frizzle. That is the part of shore that is covered with water at high tide and uncovered at low tide. The shore. That's what we call the beach where I'm from, New Jersey. Out the windows, we saw tide pools, puddles of water left on shore when the tide goes out. When we were hoping the Frizz would let us out, but no such luck. She kept driving full speed ahead. There's another great R blend, drive. Bring that tongue up and back, drive. As the bus splashed through the waves, the lifeguard blew his whistle. Frizzle did not stop. So he came rushing out to rescue us. Rushing to rescue. If your child is working at the phrase level, that's a great phrase for them. That has two R sounds. Rushing to rescue. Suddenly, a mysterious wave rose up. Miss Frizzle opened the door of the bus and the lifeguard was swept inside. Outside the waves, we saw nothing but rushing water. We screamed and closed our eyes. Screamed. That's a 3-element cluster. SCR. Screamed. When we finally opened our eyes, everything was quiet. We were under the ocean, and there had been a few small changes. The bus had turned into a submarine, and everyone was wearing a diving suit. We should have known. We were on another one of Miss Frizzle's crazy class trips. Crazy is another R blend for us. Crazy. And trips. Crazy class trips. Right away, Miss Frizzle started talking about the ocean. We are now passing over the continental shelf, she said. That's the area that stretches from the shore to where the water is 400 to 600 feet deep. 4. We bring the tip of our tongue up and back for that R. 4. We might need to push off and make a little extra sound. 4. If we're still really working on that placement of the tongue. Miss Frizzle decided this was a good moment for us to get out of the bus. Thank goodness we had air tanks all around us for fish, and more fish. Many kinds of fish swim in large groups called schools, said Miss Frizzle. Groups. There's another R blend. Groups. The G sound is a back sound, so our tongue is kind of already pulled back for the G. So it's a slightly easier transition for some students to go from a G to a Groups. Down below on the muddy bottom, lobsters were catching crabs. Starfish used their arms to pry open clamshells, and jellyfish floated past, catching small fish with their stinging tentacles. The ocean was teeming with life. Lots of R blends on that word, on that page. Crabs is a good R blend word. Starfish is a great one with the R in the middle position of the word. Now, parents, if your student's IEP is written so that they're practicing their R's at the sentence level or the conversational level, you might want to have them put this in a sentence, tell you a short story using one of these words. Those are some ideas to kind of bump up the complexity instead of just practicing it at the word level. Miss Frizzle said there was life in the water. We couldn't even see. She pulled out a microscope and made us look at seawater. Under the microscope, we saw strange creatures. Girls and boys, said Miss Frizzle, these tiny living things are called plankton. Strange creatures. That is a great R blend phrase to practice. We tried to listen, but we felt nervous. We noticed some dark shapes coming closer and closer. Dark. Oh no, the shapes were tiger sharks. Miss Frizzle told us not to worry. She said most sharks will not eat people. The number of people killed by sharks every year is very, very small, said Miss Frizzle. We panicked anyway. Then an enormous whale shark slid by. Whale sharks never hurt people. They eat nothing but plankton, said Miss Frizzle. The giant shark swam down and we went along. We were leaving the continental shelf, following a steep cliff called the continental slope. We were on our way to the deep ocean floor. After a while, the whale shark swam away, but the frizz kept going down. The water was bitter cold and pitch dark. Sunlight could not shine down so deep. Miss Frizzle switched on her flashlight. As we swam onto the bus, we noticed that it had changed again. This time it was a submersible, a vehicle made for exploring the deep ocean floor. The pressure down here would crush an ordinary submarine, Frizzle explained, and she drove all the way down to the bottom. There is not enough food here for large animals, Miss Frizzle told us. Most deep-sea fish are tiny. The deep ocean floor was as empty as an underwater desert. Underwater, 2 R's in that word. Desert. 1 more R there. Then up ahead, we saw a spot that was full of life. It looked like an undersea garden with all kinds of strange animals in it. This is a hot water vent, class, said the Frizz. A vent is an opening in the ocean floor. Flowing from the vent is super hot water mixed with hydrogen sulfide gas. Miss Frizzle said there were other vents on the ocean floor. Unfortunately, we don't have time to visit them, she added. Then she pulled up a lever on the dashboard, and the bus zoomed toward the surface. Toward the surface. 2 R's there. Soon we were motoring over the open ocean toward a sun-drenched island. Drenched. That D, back to that R. Drenched. We bring our tongue back. For the D, it comes right behind our 2 front teeth on the alveolar ridge. This spot here, that bump behind your 2 front teeth. So our tongue is up there for the D, and then it needs to be pulled back for the R. Drenched. The bus had changed into a glass-bottomed boat. Through the glass, we saw what looked like a wall made of colorful rocks. Rocks. Miss Frizzle said it was a coral reef made of tiny animals called coral polyps. We dove overboard and began to explore. The reef was made of many different kinds of corals. Some looked like trees with branches. Others looked like fans or fingers. Some even looked like human brains. There's another R blend, B-R. So for our B, we bring our lips together, ba, and then we're gonna have to bring our tongue all the way back for our brains. A coral reef makes a good home for many ocean plants and animals, said the Frizz. We saw crabs and lobsters, huge eels and octopuses, slimy sea slugs and spiny sea urchins, and the most colorful fish in the world. World is a great word to practice because it is tricky for our kids with R's. Why? Because there's a W in it. World. Most of the time when a kid can't say their R, they replace it with a W sound. And now one way to help your children know the difference between the W and the R is have them do it in a mirror. If they are rounding their lips, wah, wah, they're making a W. If they are keeping their lips back in a smile, rah, rah, they're making the R sound. We cannot make a W unless our lips are round, wah, wah. And we should not have to round our lips for our R, rah, rah. Too soon, Miss Frizzle said it was time to go. No one wanted to be left behind, so we all climbed aboard. Frizzle stepped on the gas and the bus chugged away from the coral reef. Nearby, a school of dolphins leaped past. In the distance, we saw a whale. Everything seemed normal. Then we noticed that something weird was happening. Weird. There's another one, W and an R. Weird. The bus was getting flat. As usual, Miss Frizzle was the only one who stayed calm. She drove us to an ocean current, and we were swept along in the fast-moving water for thousands of miles. After a while, we saw our beach again. Our tongue up and back. Everyone stay on the bus, shouted the Frizz. On the bus was right. It had turned into a giant surfboard. Surf! We had to stand on top of it, and we were riding a wild wave straight toward shore. Oh no, it was a giant wipeout. The whole class went under. The next thing we knew, we were washing up on the sand. Our diving suits were gone, and the bus was its old self again. There it was, sitting in the parking lot, As if nothing had happened, we thanked Lenny for everything and hit the road. Back in our classroom, we made a terrific chart of the ocean for the bulletin board. There's the chart. By then, we were definitely ready to go home. Thank goodness it was Friday. There's another R blend. Friday. After that class trip, we really needed a weekend off. The end. I hope you enjoyed that story, and I hope to both my students and parents that there were some helpful strategies throughout that video. This was a longer video, so thank you for sticking with me. Happy weekend. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you're able to get outside and enjoy some fresh air. And I will be back next week with more speech and language videos. Take care.